Anytime there's anything going on, good or bad, it's always good for investors.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's the old saying, right? When are the best two times to get into real estate? It's 20 years ago and today. In a
Exactly.
in a recession, there's opportunity, and in an expansion period, there's an opportunity as well.
Hey. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. I'm so excited for the show that we have today. I'm actually having someone back on that I've interviewed before. And as you all know, I typically don't interview somebody twice because I feel like I get all the good information out of them on the first time. But Nitzan is special and we loved each other, and he's got a lot of really great stuff to talk about. So I'm welcoming him back today. So Nitzan Mosery, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
So you
Thanks for.
are my first guest that I've actually had back on.
Oh, wow.
I just usually, because we're all podcasting, but there's just a lot of things changing in the market, and there's a lot of stuff going on all the time. So I just always like to. I'm going to start trying to keep up with people and having people come back on and talking about what it is they do and how it's changing with this crazy economy that we have going on right now.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
So we
first,
still always do toast. So do you have a drink there? Oh, I only have water today. So cheers.
there it is.
It is so nice to have you back on the show today. And still in the beginning, I still like for you to just tell everybody your name, what you do, and how they can reach you. So I like that to be in the very beginning of my show notes. And then we'll loop back and we'll talk about what's happening.
Sure. So my name is Nitzan Mosery. I am an owner-operator of multifamily apartment complexes. I'm in the real estate business in the acquisition side. We own short-term rentals. We own glamping resorts and multifamily around the country in strong growth markets. We actually just closed on a $9 million project in Wichita, Kansas. So that's what I do. You can find me all over, and I'm a coach. I teach people how to buy multifamily, how to build a business that's going to revolve around their lifestyle rather than having their lifestyle revolve around business or the job that they have. And we talk a lot about mindset and how to achieve your goals and so forth. And it's an incredible ride. And you can find me on all social media platforms as the Traveling Investor.
That's right.
I have a
I love
YouTube
the
channel.
traveling investor.
Mm-hmm.
I follow you everywhere.
Awesome. I follow you too. That's
And
great.
I'm always clicking, clicking, clicking. It's like the traveling investor. Like, what a great name, the traveling investor. Okay, so I do want to talk about this because you something that, and I know that you're in multifamily. So any of you that did not hear the first podcast, I don't even know what your podcast episode was, but you can just go on iTunes and look at all the shows, and you'll see Neatson's name there, and go back and listen because in the very first interview, I just asked a lot of questions and a lot about what he does, and it's a more of a basic interview. But I think, now that we've talked about that before, Nissan, I want to talk more about like how people really get involved, what's really happening in the multifamily, because the economy is going crazy right now. Everybody's like, oh, we're gonna have a crash, we're gonna have a recession, we're gonna have a depression, we're gonna have blah 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 blah. And I feel like, and I'm sure you feel the same way, as real estate investors, anytime there's anything going on, good or bad, it's always good for investors.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's the old saying, right? When are the best two times to get into real estate? It's 20 years ago and today. In a
Exactly.
in a recession, there's opportunity, and in an expansion period, there's an opportunity as well. It all depends on how aggressive you want to be with your underwriting, with your numbers and so forth, or how conservative. But there's always opportunities. You just need to know where to look and what they smell like.
Exactly. Because what happens is, as things, gas prices start going up and things start going up, I feel like a lot of people start like hanging on to their purse strings. And
Mhm.
I feel like, hey, everything's literally on sale right now. Like if you're going to buy, you need to buy now because literally everything is, and it's not hanging on. Like now's the time to spend and buy, and there's still all kinds of financing available, and there's still stuff that's available for people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm getting calls constantly, giving money away for, business equipment and business needs and whatnot. People just throwing money at you. And that's kind of what I think. And I'm not an economist. I'm not a, scholarly person, but I think that is that the car loans with no down payment, the home loans with no down payment, no credit score, no income verification. That's where it all starts, right? When you
Yeah.
see things like that coming to market, you know in several years it's going to happen because people that shouldn't be taking out these loans are taking out these loans, and then they're going to come due, and they're not going to be able to pay for them. Whether
That was
it's
how our
for your
first big
car,
giant crash happened back in 2008, 9, 10. I mean, people were, yeah, if you could just go on a mirror and it would fog up, they would give you a loan. It's like,
that's
seriously.
right.
And
That's
no
right.
money down, people shouldn't, interest only. So your payment was smaller. And then the reality is when the real payment came, people were like, oh my God, I can't make the payment.
Right. So that's what's been going on in the last 3 years in multifamily, where cap rates have been so compressed that going into a new acquisition with permanent debt didn't make sense because your mortgage payment, your income could not cover your mortgage payment. So what did people do? They said, you know what? We're going to buy this property. We're going to be in and out in 12, 24, 36 months. We'll get a bridge loan, short-term loan, interest only, a little higher interest rate, but who cares because we're only paying interest, and then we'll sell it to somebody else. Now that interest rates are bumping up, right? Now that prices may be compressing a little bit, these people are now in a position where they have to sell at a certain price because that's what they promised their investors. Some who were smart were able to get out quickly and sell. The
Uh-huh.
others now they're kind of starting to hurt. And let's see what happens, 6 months, 12 months down the road with those assets.
I know
Right?
it's really, so what do you consider to be a good cap rate on the, now on the big multifamilies? Like what's a good cap rate? What do you look for?
So, okay, so you obviously want to go in with a decent cap rate, which is anywhere today between 4 and 6, which is a 6 cap rate is unbelievable. Uh, but it's not necessarily at what cap rate are you buying at, right? Because you have to look at what is the journey that you're going to take with this property. What are you going to do with it? So you may
Right.
be buying it at a 3.5 cap rate, but your value that you're adding to it is going to take it so high that you'll be able to drop, you'll be able to sell it at a 4 or 5 cap rate and still make money on it.
Exactly.
So, so that's what we look for. Obviously, we need to understand that the income has to cover the debt service. Got
Yes.
to pay your fixed expenses, your mortgage, taxes, and insurance. Because if you don't pay those, you lose the property, right? So you got to make sure that it pays that, and it's just you got to look at the journey, is what I'm trying to say. Where you're buying the property, what you're going to do to it, and where is it going to end up. And if you can make money along the way, and you can give your investors a good distribution from cash flow, and then a nice bump at the end when you sell, and go for it.
So people that would be listening that are like, I don't really know anything about multifamily. I don't even know what a cap rate is. Tell people what the cap rate is.
So cap rate is the ratio between your net operating income, which is the income that is after all of your operating expenses, okay? And not including your mortgage, because your mortgage is not an operating expense. Because I could buy a property free and clear and not have a mortgage, and you can
Right.
buy a property with a mortgage. So that is not an operating expense. An operating expense is your payroll, your management fees, your utilities, um, any legal fees, vendors, property management fee, payroll, your paper clips and pens at the office, anything that you need to operate the property, advertising, marketing bills. So you take your income, you subtract your operating expenses, and you have your net operating income. And your net up and the cap rate is the ratio between the income and the purchase price. So for example, let's say you have $100,000 of NOI, net operating income, which means after all expenses, before your mortgage, and that includes your real estate taxes and your insurance as well, because you need that to operate the property.
That's right.
Let's say after all your
basically everything except for
you
the
have
mortgage.
correct. So let's say you have an NOI of $100,000 and you're buying a property for $1 million. So you take that $100,000 and you divide it by $1 million, which is the purchase price. And you're going to get a 10 cap. That means that you're buying a property extremely, extremely cheap. Okay. That means that you're gonna make a great return on your investment. And let's take it a little step further. So let's say you're buying a property for $1 million, and we just came out of, let's say, 25% down payment. So you're talking at, maybe a mortgage of $750,000.
Okay.
And I'm just, rounding numbers here, rounding numbers. And let's say your mortgage was a 3.5% interest. So you're talking about maybe a $32,000 mortgage bill, and you're making, and so after that you're taking in $70,000, let's say, right? Is your net income that you're coming in before taxes. Now you had to invest $250,000. That was your deposit, right?
Right.
So your return on investment is 75,000 divided by 250,000. That's a 30% return.
That is really good. It's so funny. I used to know how to do a cap rate like off the top of my head. I could just sit down and go, blah, 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 here's a cap rate on everything that I did. And then, I don't know, we got into buying buildings that we own for long term. And it's hard to do a cap rate when you're having to rehab half the building and rent half the building. And they're not finished projects. I told Bill the other day, I said, I think I have forgotten how to figure out a cap rate. I mean, it's in one of my books. I'm like, I'm going to have to go back to my own book and reread how to formulate a cap rate. So
remember this guy. His name is Irv. IRV, right?
Yes.
But when you want to figure out what the NOI is or what the cap rate is or what the purchase price is, you remember your buddy Irv, IRV. IRV stands for I is the net operating income, R is the rate, the cap rate, and V is the value, the purchase price. So usually you're going to have two out of those three numbers, right? So what we just did now, we had the NOI and the V, and the value, the purchase price, right? So the equation is I over R times V.
Okay, I'm writing it. I over
R
times V. There you go.
So we had the NOI, which was 100,000. We had the purchase price, which was the value. We did 100,000 divided by 1 million, and we got to the cap rate.
Nice. Yeah, so I think that I know way back I used to do a lot of rehabs, and I sell them in little groups. People would buy 5 as rentals for long term, and then they'd get little way smaller than multifamily, but just little groups of things. And people were like, oh, I want a 15% cap rate, blah blah. And it's but that's just not always possible right now. And I think with you, what you said, 4 to 6% is a good solid rate. It's realistic.
Yeah, that's a very good cap rate. If you're buying, and again, but it also determines the class of property, right?
Yes.
So B's and A's, they're probably gonna run you around, anywhere between a 3 and a 4 cap, an A. B property could run you between a 4 and a 5. A C with a lot of value still added to it that you can add to it will probably run you 4.5 to 5. And then you've got the D properties, which will run you, obviously a higher cap rate just because of the location.
So when you said you all just closed on a $9 million deal in Kansas. So people, I think, also need to understand, especially when you're buying multifamily units. So how many units was that one, the $9 million one?
That was 70 units.
70 units. So they're buying a straight up apartment complex.
Correct. 70 unit.
And I think people still, even after like all of us doing podcasts and everyone preaching for years and years, you don't have to buy in your own backyard, but people still always want to find things in their own backyard. But if you're dealing with a $9 million property that has 70 units, it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't matter where it's at because you're not going to be up there managing every day unless you actually want to like live in it and manage it, which you don't want to do.
Right.
Then you have all the tenants knocking on your door all the time. Hey, I need something. It's like, oh my God, what am I doing?
That's right. No. We want the property management company to field all of those calls.
Yes.
But you can buy if it makes sense to buy in your own backyard. Fantastic, right? Do it. It makes life a lot easier. Where I live, prior to 2018, this area in regards to the rest of the country was very expensive.
You're in
Didn't
Boca,
make
right?
sense. I'm in Boca, correct. So, from Miami to Jupiter, nothing made sense because it was so expensive. C-class properties were trading like A-class properties and whatnot. What happened in the last 3-4 years, the whole country kind of caught up to South Florida. Now I'm buying C-class properties at A-class cap rates. So I said, why not just go after Class A properties? Their value is gonna last longer.
Yeah.
You don't have to put a lot of work into it. There's still value add to it because we're buying it in a certain way and so it makes sense. So so I went and I looked outside of my market because it was too hot. So I learned how to do it long distance and whatnot. And it's fun because I get to travel to these areas. I am the traveling investor. I was just in Wichita with my wife and my team, and we toured the area again. Because we just closed, so the whole team went out there, and we met with the property manager, and we walked the vacant units, and we came up with the game plan, and we solidified the game plan, and we found another property that we're putting on a contract.
Nice, so, in the same area.
Yeah, 3 minutes away, and that's because the broker knows that we're closers. We're able to close, and we just closed in that market.
Yeah, so if someone's looking to buy one of these, let's say we'll use that as a good example. $9 million deal. It's got 70 units. So do people typically do that like as individually, or do people like get 3 or 4 people together and they go in as partners? Like, what would be the most common
way to buy a
bigger property like that?
So the most common way, well, one of the ways that a lot of us do it is through a syndication.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What a syndication is I'm out there. I'm an owner operator. I'll go out and I'll find the right market, the right city, the right neighborhood, find the right deal, right? Build those broker relations, do all that. Find the right property. My team, and I have people on my team that I'm a part of, and we have underwriters, we have analysts, we have acquisitions manager, we have asset managers, we have lenders. So this is all on my team. And when we find a deal and we underwrite it, and what we'll do is we'll bring it out to our investor base. And these are just people, like yourself, for example, that I have a relationship with, that we like each other. We're having a drink together, and I can say, hey, look, here's an opportunity. And I let you read over it and we can talk about it. And if you like it, fantastic. Then you invest in it. And if not, then you don't. And we just move on. So this is a great way for people who love what they do, have a nice income, don't ever want to, in the near future, don't want to leave what they want to, don't want to leave their job, but they understand I got to make my money work for myself. I got to make my money work for me. So then they can invest in projects like this, and I'll go out and I'll build a team that has a track record of success of managing assets, going full circle and paying out distributions to investors, selling properties, because it's important that the people at the helm, right, of this ship know what they're doing, know how to navigate, know how to foresee problems and obstacles and not run aground, so to speak. So that's what we do. And now if somebody wants to get into the active part of it, and they can go out and they can find a property. And if they find a good opportunity, then if they want, they can bring it to me, and then we can help them close on it and do what they need to do and make it successful.
Nice. So for people that just want to say, hey, like I've got $500,000, I just want to give it to you. and let it sit, they can be part of the syndication. They don't necessarily have to be out there traveling, checking out the deals and stuff like that. But what's your minimum? As I know you told me this before, but what's your minimum amount
So
for
usually
people to be in with you?
it depends on the amount of the raise. So for example, the one that we just did, it was $50,000 minimum. We
Okay.
have another property in Buckhead in Atlanta
Oh, that's a hot
for that the
area.
minimum raise is 100. Yes, it's one of the top areas in the country right now.
Yeah,
Atlanta
it
is,
really
one of
is.
the
My
top cities.
cousin lives up near there and she's a rehabber. She's like, oh my gosh, I got a deal in Buckhead. It's like
Mhm.
such a good area.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's amazing. So yeah, so that's so they come and they say, hey, now depending on the type of offering that we're providing,
Uh-huh.
if they're a sophisticated investor, I would have to uh, I would have to have a previous relationship with them. If
Right.
they're an accredited investor, then I don't have to have a previous relationship with them. It's just the SEC protecting mom and pop
Oh
investors
yeah,
from from doing another Madoff, right? We all know what happened
exactly.
with him, right? So yeah.
Exactly. So now I think I had told you this before. We bought a bunch of buildings in Iowa. So the
Mm-hmm.
buildings that we have, like one of our buildings, it's a four-story building. So it has some office space on the top. Then it has the third and fourth floor are apartments and lofts, and the down floor is like, walk-in commercial like beauty shops and stuff like that and things like that. But you guys are looking for not commercial stuff like that. You're looking for actual apartment complexes.
Right. So
Mostly.
our core business is multifamily. Okay.
Okay.
If there, when there's an opportunity. You got to look at it for what it is, right?
Oh yeah.
So, we're open to looking at all kinds of opportunities, but my team and I, what we focus on and what we go after is multifamily.
Nice. So if you're buying the deal in Kansas, for example, it's got 70 units. So there's 70 apartments in there. And what are some
Mm-hmm.
of the things that you all do or just whatever part of your process to like make that property more valuable, bring in the most amount of money from it? What are, and
Yeah.
I know that you don't do that, but with my buildings, I put in washers and dryers and soda machines and candy machines and all kinds of stuff like that. You can't believe how much money we make off the washer and dryer.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like
Absolutely.
thousands of dollars. It's like, oh my gosh.
And they love you for it because it's in the property. They don't have to drag it, put it in the car, and schlep it somewhere and deal with all that. So when you look at real estate is real estate, right? When you're looking to see what are the value add, right? The value add is how much income can I generate from this property? What can we
Yes.
do, right? Single family, multifamily, commercial, it doesn't really matter because we're asking the same question. What can we do to this asset that it will generate more income for us?
Yes.
So, like you said, soda machines, washing machines, things of that nature. So, what we'll do is, for example, this property was built in 2016. So, there's not a lot of renovation that we have to do. It
Yes.
already has granite countertops and mocha covered, mocha colored cabinets, and, it's already decked out. So, what do we do, right? We're looking for the management inefficiency at this point. So we looked and we saw that they're not charging for other income. They're not charging pet fees. They're not charging parking. They're not charging for this, and they're not building back utilities, and they're not doing certain things. So we went in and we said, okay, not only are they doing that, but they're not even pushing the rents to where they need to be. You have two people living in an apartment where only one person is on the lease, and so there are a lot of things of that nature. We want to add in more amenities so that we can raise rents even more.
Yes.
Well, that's what we're doing here. We're going to put in, for example, like a tech package, wireless a thermostat, wireless door lock, so people can have their apps, USB ports all over the place. Right? We want, we're going to build back for the cable, for internet, all of that stuff. We're building back because it's a Class A property,
Yep.
and people that live in a Class A property understand that this is what they're going to do. But also in a B or C property,
Yeah.
in a B or C property, we'll go in and we'll do a full renovation. Like this property we're going to put on the contract. That was built in 1976, partially renovated in 2001. So there's still
Wow.
room to go in there and to add and to bring it even to more modern times, like with what I just said, like adding a tech
Does
pack.
it still have green countertops from the
Big tile.
70s? Remember the 70s, all the green, the avocado, and the yellow countertops? Like, what were people thinking back then?
Right, right, exactly, exactly, exactly.
So go on. So you go in and you like what would be like a typical reno? So you try to buy obviously things that are nice and ready to go as they are, and then you add all the little extra features. But see,
Right,
I'm that
exactly.
person. If I was going to rent an apartment, I want all the features. I want a washer and dryer inside my apartment. I want the nice refrigerator. I want the nice appliances. I want the internet. I want an alarm system. I want a nice pool. I want a gym. Like I want all the stuff, or I don't want to rent there.
Right, right, exactly. So that's the Class A assets, right, that have all those amenities, or even the B assets that we bought and renovated and made them into a B plus A minus, right?
Nice.
So you can do that. You can take a property from where it's at and really add a lot of value. Now, depending also on the location of the property, as you know, you could buy a 1980s property, and if you put granite in there, you're never going to hit that rental level that you need to justify putting granite counter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it also has to do with the location. So we look at everything. We look at the location of the asset, the city, the demographics of our residences. What is the highest rent level that we can get to, and then what's our cost basis on that?
I like it. Now, do most of your apartments have like pools and gyms and movie theaters and all that stuff?
Um, we don't go to that level, okay? Because when you're at that level, there's nothing above you, right? You're
That's true too.
right. So what happens in a recession? The people in that level of asset, right, the A plus or the A, they will go down now to the A's and A minus property because they're going down. So there's nobody above you to come to fill up your assets. So we don't go that high up in the ladder. We always want to be somewhere where, for example, this Wichita deal, it's on the river, and across from us, they're paying over $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
And it was built 2, 3 years ago. And these are the complexes that have the indoor driving range, indoor pool hall, wading pools, massage parlors, the whole 9 yards, barbecue pits everywhere. You look at the pool, it's like a beach resort, right? When the recession hits and those people aren't going to want to pay $2,500 for a one bedroom, guess where they're coming? They're going to walk across the bridge and they're going to come to me.
Yeah.
And in the good times, those tenants are going to go back across the bridge, and the ones in the B plus are going to come to me because now they can afford a little bit nicer asset.
That's right.
So you got to have that cushion. So that's where we like.
That makes a lot of sense. I know that they're building so many new apartments in Denver. It's crazy the amount of building. And there's a couple new buildings that they built downtown that my daughter lived in one of them. And this apartment has it's so fancy. They're all lofts and there's 2 movie theater rooms. You just let them know when you want to use it. And a gym, an indoor pool, and on the roof there's running tracks. And I was like, damn, I almost want to live here because literally everything you can think of is right there. You go downstairs, they have a little store that's just for the people in the apartment to grab pizzas and drinks. And I was like, this has everything you can think of. They have a person to walk your dogs. It's like, dang. But it was so expensive. They were renting an apartment for 700 square feet for like $3,000. And I was like, it's 700 square feet. Like, it's this big. But it has all the stuff. And I was like, well, the amenities are great. But with everything happening, hours getting cut back and things, they moved to another apartment that's 3 times the size for less money, but it has a pool, just a pool.
And that's how that property was. I walked into that amazing asset, and it's huge. It's 200, 300 units.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I said, I want to live here.
Yeah.
This is awesome. This is great. When I was growing up, they didn't have these types of apartments for us.
Right? No. My first few apartments I lived in, in my 20s, they didn't even have washers and dryers at the apartment complex. I had to throw all my laundry in bags and go down to the laundromat. I remember getting my very first apartment. It was like maybe 2020. Like, not my first, but my first one that had washer and dryer on each floor. And I was like, oh my gosh, they have a washer and dryer on the floor. This is like the best thing in the world. So I didn't have to go to the laundromat anymore. And I was just impressed by the fact that they had a washer and dryer on the floor. That everybody used that was always so dirty and nasty. But when you come from one without one, that was like the best thing since sliced bread. And then I got another one because I lived in apartments for a while. Then my next one had like a wash and dryer inside the apartment. And it had a swimming pool and it had a fireplace. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am living so large right now. I've got a pool. I've got a outside. I got a fireplace. I got a little stand up in my apartment that's this big. But I was just like, I'm living so fancy right now.
Right. So that's exactly it. Right. So the property in Buckhead was built in 1866 as a hotel, and it's one of those. When you look at it, it looks like it's from New Orleans, from the French Quarter. It's got with the railing and the nice metal and whatnot, and 2 floors. But it was renovated years and years ago and converted into a multifamily. And the owner just started, put about $1.5 million. He changed all the roofs, started renovating some of the units. But now think of this, right? You're in the middle of a metropolitan city like Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's hot, crazy. It's humid in the summertime, right? And you're living in a complex that has a pool. How awesome is that?
It makes a big difference.
What single person that wants to live in a metro wouldn't want to live, or a couple of families wouldn't want to live in a property in the middle of Atlanta in Buckhead that has a pool? We have a pool, and inside the pool deck it has a barbecue pit, and then we have a nice gazebo covered barbecue pit and a fire pit so you can hang out and what. Right, so we're going to go in. We're going to renovate all of those units. All the units have hardwood floors. We're going to redo the hardwood floors, paint the window units, put in those PTAC quiet, efficient units inside inside. Granite countertops, new cabinets, bathroom, kitchen, redo everything, and bring it. Remember when I said we don't like to go to the top? We want to have somebody at the buffer. So we looked at the comparables. I'll give you an example. Just I'm shooting out numbers, right? Just for, let's say our competitors are at 1,900 for a 1-bedroom. We're going to take ours to 1,750, 1,800. So we're just below. And if we can do that with our underwriting and still make money, you've got a good deal, because you still get a room left to push later on after the renovations are done and so forth. So that's what we plan on doing with that one, and that's why we love it so much. We're so excited because it's a huge property.
Oh, I bet it's beautiful. Buckhead's, I bet if it's all the old like New Orleans style, it's got to be so fancy and so pretty.
Beautiful. It's old. No one's really been taking care of it. We're going to breathe life back into it and really make it, fancy and nice and cool and hip and, really a property that is, and remember I talked about location, the actual physical location. So this property is, because of the way it is, it's out of its location. It shouldn't be there, but we want to bring it up so that it belongs in that neighborhood.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Now, do you ever add things like swimming pools, and do you ever add those kind of things, or if it doesn't have it, you leave it like it is?
Again, I haven't done it yet, but I know other owner operators that have done it, and it does pay. But you got to understand your costs and how much can you push your rent afterwards.
Exactly.
And
how much of it is the winter? Are you going to heat it in the winter? Are you going to close it? What are you going to do? Is it only worth it to have it for a few months a year? But, a lot of the ones in Denver now that have pools, they're like rooftop pools because, they heat them in the winter. And they have the little fire things outside. And I mean, it's like,
well,
when you charge all day.
Right.
When the dead of the winter was freezing cold and snowing. They're at the pool.
When you're charging $3,000-4,000 a month,
you can.
There's that 1%, right? So if I'm charging you $4,000 a month, my per door price has to be $400,000.
Yeah.
Right. So you calculate that, and you're like, okay, we do this to the pool, and we do that, are we in that 1% rule if we're going to charge $4,000, charge $5,000, right? So it's and people say, oh, people won't pay that much for it. You know what? People will pay.
Yeah, they will.
You give them that splendor and that luxury and that lifestyle. People will find a way to to pay for it, and to figure it out, because that's what
Yeah,
they
they
want.
will. And one of the things I've noticed, because I'm 63, so I have a lot of people, friends of mine that are at the point where they're starting to retire. But I've got some friends I've known from high school that live in California. And they're like, we don't want the upkeep of the house. We don't want this. We don't want that. So now they're, 64, 65, and they're selling their houses. They don't want to have, a $2 million house. It's just the two of them, no kids. And they're renting these apartments, but they want all the fancy stuff because they want to like rent for life at this point. And so it's interesting that a lot of boomers are renting now because
Yep.
they are in their 60s and 70s and they don't want the upkeep of the house, but they've also owned a house for a long time and they don't want to live in like some subpar apartment.
And I'll tell you, it's like my mother, God bless her, 87 years old, right? She's an independent woman. She's got her faculties and whatnot. She doesn't want to own a home because, she's single. Owning a home, I bought her a house next to me in a community, and it was, single homes in a 55 and over community. She said, listen, if I don't force myself to leave the house, I never see anybody and I never go anywhere. So, it's from the house to the supermarket to back to the doctor and back. Now she lives in an apartment complex where downstairs, like we said, there's a movie theater. There's a night, there's mahjong night. There's a coffee shop and a restaurant downstairs. She goes there, she parks herself at a table and she starts talking to 40 people.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they want. They don't want it because a lot of older people are single. They don't want to be alone.
My mom moved recently into like a very old women's boarding house that was redone and turned into a senior community. So basically you have like a giant bedroom and there's no kitchens inside the apartment. So everyone that's there is over, I don't know, maybe they're over 65. So there's no kitchens, but they have a giant dining area. They have the meals, they have the buses that take you everywhere, they take you to the doctor, but they have all these activities. And so in your apartment, you can have like a little fridge and there's a little wet bar area, but there's no, some people have, getting mental issues, like, don't want to burn the places down. But I'm telling you what, my mom is like this super, super shy. She's like, oh my God, I played trivia today. And she plays trivia every day. And she's got like these 90-year-old men asking her out. And the bus takes them to the supermarket and takes them to the movies and they go dancing. And she is like a social butterfly. And she loves it. There's 102 apartments. Everyone in there is 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're also independent. And like, she's like, I can't believe it. And everyone dates, and we go on dates here. And
Right?
it's like you're 85 years old. And my mom is like literally dating and running around at 85 years old. And the apartment has everything. Like literally, they have a nail salon in there, they have hair, but they take you everywhere if you want to go out. And I mean, it's just like, who are you? What have you done with my mother?
Exactly. It's great. It's great. We should all be so lucky.
And I gotta tell you what, in the senior buildings, they have crazy amounts of sex.
Oh,
I was so shocked. The guy that runs the building, this is like college. This is like living in a college dorm, but for people that don't give a shit anymore. He goes, they have crazy amounts of sex in it. My mom's like, oh my God, you would not believe it. I'm like, Mom, listen, I love you. Please don't give me any details. I don't need to hear anything about that. But she's plus they're all in their 70s and 80s. So they're like from the Woodstock days and they smoke weed and they party and, they're like hippies, but they're old now.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. That's fantastic.
It's like, oh my gosh, because I don't know, I guess at my age, I think like, ew, 85, and they're still all, but then when you're there, you're like, hey, they're still hopping on it all the time down there. It's like, my goodness.
Why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's fun. So I told Bill, I said, I wouldn't mind owning a couple of senior buildings now that I've been there and been to that one so much because they're so much fun.
Yeah, they're great. They're great.
They're
Absolutely.
listening to rock music instead of like, most of the older homes used to listen to like, swing music, and now they've got like the Rolling Stones is playing, and it's like, I want to live. This is like a party all the time. I want to live here.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Ah, that's funny. So in the multifamily, because we are coming into something recession-ish. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I just think there's always a good time for stuff like that. You find it's just as good as it's always been, if not a little bit better right now.
Multifamily is a great hedge against inflation and recession
Yeah. Because
because
people lose their houses at record speed right now, and they're moving into apartments.
so during inflation, right? People don't want to pay that high down payment, high interest rate, so they're renting longer. So
Yep.
they have a little bit more money saved up, so they can pay a little bit higher. There becomes a demand for multifamily. In a recession, like you said, people lose their jobs, they lose their homes, they are forced to rent. Right now, both are shitty situations. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry. Both are bad situations, right?
You can say whatever you want.
I don't want anybody to lose their home. I don't want anybody, right?
No.
That's a tricky situation. Uh, what we do is we provide great places, communities for these people to reside in, no matter
Yeah.
why they arrived to us, right? But in both instances, inflation and recession, that's the best hedge for your money because that will constantly and consistently grow in value.
Yeah.
While if you keep the money in the bank, it will deflate and it will lose power.
Yeah. 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 No, I'm with you. I know I'm working with two homeowners right this very minute, and they're both not able to keep their house for sure. And they're both looking for apartments right now.
Yeah.
And the apartments have to be less than what their rent is, and they're looking for probably what you would call like a B type of a, yeah, just a basic apartment, no pool, no fancy stuff, just but both of them, I'm paying their rent for 1 year in advance, so they can like have a break off of all of the pressure of the bills. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they're moving. They're like, I don't even want to move into another house. I don't even want to rent a house. I just want to get an apartment where all the stuff's done for me, and I can just like come and go.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's so many people doing that right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, tell everyone I love talking to you. You're so it's so much good information. And when we do a second call like this, we're able to talk more about exactly what you do instead of like a get to know you kind of call. So just tell everybody again, Nitzan, one more time how they can find you.
Sure. So you can email me at Nitzan, Nizan, at mtninvestmentgroup.com. You can check out our website. That's www.mtninvestmentgroup.com. And you can find me on all social media platforms as the Traveling Investor.
Traveling investor. I like it. I heard that. I was like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that because you're always doing stuff all over the place. And we do travel a lot and we do invest all over. It's like, oh man, traveling investor, that's a good name.
It is, right?
That is a good name. All right, guys. And you are always looking for people to invest and always looking for buildings.
That's right.
So
Always
folks
looking for good
listening
opportunities.
out there, if you got money to invest, you got some buildings, you're tired of having them, contact Nitzan. He's your man.
Amen. Thank you.
Right?
Absolutely. That's the way to do it.
And I'm getting ready to also be on his podcast. And what is the name of your podcast?
It's called The Traveling Investor. It's a live Q&A show.
So check out the Traveling Investor podcast. And, you're at the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. And I forgot to tell you guys my own website. So Dwanderful.com. Opt in. I've got 4 free ebooks over there for you. And we're both here for you. And if you're looking to invest in some multifamilies, I will send you his way. If you want to buy a commercial building in Clinton, Iowa, I've got a building for you.
There you go.
I've got buildings for everybody.
I just read an article today that there's a certain city in Iowa, or is it? A certain city in Iowa where they're looking to put it on the map and make it a nice hub for younger millennials to come and they want to pick it up. I'll have to send it to you.
Well,
I made note of it today
river,
somewhere.
and our little town is on the river. There's an old hotel there where all the famous people used to stay. Because it was like, at one point, Clinton was the home of all the lumber barons. So there were all these, it had more millionaires in that little town than in the whole United States at one point. And they're taking a couple of these really old hotels that are historical, turning them into lofts. But even just like in our little tiny 3 blocks by 3 blocks, they're putting in like 200 lofts down there.
Amazing, huh?
So that's going to be good for my little coffee shop and my antique mall and my clothing boutique.
Yeah, yeah. I was reading where there's a shortage of housing, of affordable housing, of all kinds of housing. There's just nothing available.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you read articles like that, you know, for me, that's a, you know, sends out some flags, and I go, okay, it's time to investigate that area because, you know, this is when the main markets that everyone's been investing in are overheated. Now it's time to look for other markets.
Yeah.
Go in and buy that way.
Yes. I am so happy to have you back on the show again today, Nitzan. It was good to catch up. You're looking great. Whenever I get down to Boca, we're going to go out and have some drinks. And I love, you know, I mean, I've been excited to kind of catch up on what's happening in multifamily because I hear so many people that say they always want to do it. And they don't know where to go. I'm like, hey, follow the traveling investor. He's doing it everywhere.
Yeah, I also have a coaching program. So if they want to learn how to do it, I'll teach them how to build a company, a business that will revolve around their lifestyle, and so that they can go and do what it is that, you know, that they're passionate about. You know, real estate has made more millionaires than any other industry.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time. Every single year when Forbes puts out the list of all the new millionaires, there's more millionaires from real estate than everything combined, always, every year since the beginning of time. So if you're not investing in real estate, you are literally missing the boat.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
All right, it's good to see you again, my friend. You're so nice to see you and catch up. And I took all kinds of really great notes. It's a lot of great stuff. And thank you. I literally forgot how to do cap rates. I haven't done one for a while. I was like, what's that formula again? So I've got Irv.
There you go, Irv, my buddy Irv.
I'll never forget it again. Because if you don't do something for a while, you're like, okay, now what do I do here? So I'm like, I've got Irv now. So now I will never forget.
Awesome.
All right, guys, check him out at The Traveling Investor and Dwanderful.com. Also, both of our podcasts, leave some 5-star reviews, subscribe and follow us because we work hard on our shows and we do that for you. So don't let our work go unnoticed. All right, Nitzan, I will catch up with you soon. It's been wonderful having you back on here today, and I'm super excited. And everyone else, remember, we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, and the truth is in the red letters. Ciao. Goodbye, Nitzan.
Bye. Thank you.